The idea of implementing a draft lottery in the NFL is the worst thing I've ever heard of, and I think draft lotteries in general are bad. To start, the NFL does not have a tanking problem. The Giants were one of the worst teams in the NFL last year. Heading into Week 17 against the Colts, the Giants had 2 wins. The best player on their team had been injured since Week 13. Their best offensive lineman had been out for the season since Week 6. Their quarterback was Drew Lock, and the Colts mathematically still had a chance at the playoffs if they beat the Giants. The Giants were depleted by injury, only had something to gain by losing, and were playing a team that was still playing for the playoffs, yet the Giants played their hearts out and won with Drew Lock throwing for 4 touchdowns. Then, when the draft came around, even though the Giants only had themselves to blame for losing the right to have the first overall pick, they still heavily pursued trading for the first overall pick and offered the Titans a draft haul for the right to select Cam Ward, which shows that teams in the NFL care more about winning every single week, regardless of the effect it has on their draft pick. The Giants could have been able to select their favorite quarterback in the draft for free if they lost to the Colts, but they beat the Colts in the second to last game of the season, still tried to trade up, and did not get their favorite quarterback in the draft. When you look at all of the teams drafting in the top 10 last year, it wasn't because they were trying to lose. Heading into the season, the Titans tried to supply Will Levis with weapons, but he was horrible, leading to them losing because they just suck. No matter what the Browns did at quarterback, they sucked, and the offensive line was bad. The Patriots had no offensive line and no real receiving threats. The Jaguars star quarterback got injured, and the coaching was horrible. The Raiders had horrible quarterback play no matter what they did. The Jets fired their head coach in Week 4. The Panthers had an all-time atrocious defense. The Saints were plagued by injuries and were coached by Dennis Allen. And finally, the Bears had bad offensive line play, and their coaching situation was one of the worst I've ever seen over the course of a season. None of these teams were actively trying to lose. In the case of an NFL draft lottery, imagine the Jaguars, who lost their starting quarterback due to an injury, fell to the middle of the first round because teams should always be trying to win. They would have not been in a good position to trade up for Travis Hunter. They would be in a worse position to build towards a better future, and would have effectively been punished because their starting quarterback got injured, leading to them losing more games. Now that I've addressed that tanking does not exist in the NFL, why do I hate the idea of a draft lottery in general? I hate a draft lottery because it introduces an element of luck into roster building, accidentally saving teams that made poor roster decisions but happened to not be the worst team in the league. The Bengals, for example, decided not to invest on the defensive side of the ball. They made sure they had all of the pieces right on the offensive side of the ball and failed to make the playoffs because their defense could not stop a nosebleed, even though they were supported by one of the best offenses in the NFL. Imagine they were then rewarded for their poor roster construction by getting lucky in a draft lottery with the ability to select Abdul Carter. The example I just gave for the NFL just happened in the NBA. Nico Harrison traded one of the best players in the NBA in what is widely regarded as one of the worst, most perplexing trades in NBA history to win now with more defense and injury-prone old veterans. It went completely sideways, everyone got injured, they missed the playoffs, but are accidentally getting rewarded for bad decisions because luck was on their side and they landed the first overall pick. As a byproduct of trying to punish tanking so much, you are rewarding teams for other types of bad decisions and potentially punishing teams that weren't necessarily trying to lose, but their star players just got injured. The Hornets pick only fell one spot, but were they trying to lose or were they just bad? Maybe the reason they had the 3rd worst record in the NBA was because 3 of the best players on their team were injured. LaMelo Ball missed 35 games, Brandon Miller missed 55 games, and Mark Williams missed 41 games. Does their pick deserve to fall one spot just because these 3 players got injured so much? The idea of an NFL draft lottery is incredibly dumb, and I think while tanking is not good, a draft lottery indirectly punishes teams that don't deserve to be punished by virtue of luck.